Ed should have listened to himself. Never take a case to bed. Now, Jack M. Warner choosing to start his career as an independent producer with a dirty cop crime picture tells you all you need to know about the pervasiveness of noir at the time this picture was made. There were a lot of crime films coming out. Pictures like Southside 1000, Dial 1119, and Highway 301. And those are just the ones with numbers in the title. Jack M. Warner Jr.'s hopes for a career beyond his father's influence would go unrealized. He returned to the ranks at Warner's, working as a production executive until he and his dad finally split for good in 1958. Jr. would go unmentioned in his father's memoirs. And he'd have only 2 more features on his resume, Brushfire from 1962 and the 1965 family film Taffy and the Jungle Hunter. So, thanks largely to the direction of Felix Feist and the camera work of Russell Harlan, the man who cheated himself would be Jack M. Warner's most memorable 98 minutes as a producer. Now, Russell Harlan crafted some terrific imagery for this film, specifically the scenes shot on location in San Francisco, culminating in perhaps the quietest climax to a crime picture ever, in that hideout at Fort Point at the foot of the Golden Gate Bridge. Vertigo fans know it as the spot where Kim Novak would later make a memorable leap into the bay. Now, like director Felix Feist, Russell Harlan was not attached to any one studio, preferring to work as a freelancer. Now, this led to assignments as varied as Howard Hawks' Red River and Tarzan and the Slave Girl, directed by Lee Rolam Sholem. Harlan's most inventive film was Gun Crazy, which he'd shot for the King Brothers in 1949. During his 33-year career, Harlan was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Pretty damn good for a guy who started out as Gary Cooper's stunt double and essentially taught himself cinematography by keeping his eyes and ears open on film sets. Speaking of Gun Crazy, I'm sure many of you noiristas recognized John Dahl, the actor who played Andy Cullen, from his role in that classic film, where he was on the other side of the law, playing a naive kid who goes on a crime spree with a spunky carnival sharpshooter.
Look, you're my brother, Ed. I'd hate to send other guys after you.
Now, even if you can get past the idea of Lee J. Cobb and John Dahl as brothers, it's still pretty hard to swallow his performance in this film. The role is skimpily written, which gives Dahl a little too much room for affected mannerisms. A smidgen of his "aw shucks" routine goes a long way. In contrast, Lisa Howard, who plays his fiancée Janet, has a nice, easygoing, unforced demeanor in front of the camera.
How's my working gal?
Happy. I like it.
Well, you're married into a mighty fine family.
Part of the plan. If anything happens to you, I'll have a spare.
She also happened to be married to the director, Felix Feist. They'd gotten hitched in 1947, divorced in 49, but had reunited by the time this film was made. To me, she seemed a natural, but her career never caught fire. She made only a few other movies during the 50s before completely overhauling her life and career and becoming a blonde. She started working as a radio journalist and made a name for herself covering the 1960 Democratic National Convention. And she broke big time when she scored an exclusive interview with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, which led to her being the first female anchor ever hired by ABC News. She eventually had her own television show, Lisa Howard and News with the Woman's Touch, on which she interviewed prominent newsmakers of the day, making her, essentially, the original Barbara Walters. Now, Howard caused a media sensation in 1963 when she traveled to Havana and secured an exclusive interview with Fidel Castro. She then stretched the bounds of journalistic protocol by acting, with the full cooperation of the CIA, as an emissary between Cuba and the Kennedy administration. She hosted cocktail parties for Che Guevara in her Upper East Side apartment, brokered meetings between Cuban officials and the UN, and according to numerous sources, slept with the Cuban prime minister. Now, eventually her politics got so partisan, ABC fired her. So not long after blazing a trail for women in media, Lisa Howard became a pariah in her chosen field. She suffered a miscarriage soon after and ended up killing herself with a handful of barbiturates in a convenience store parking lot on the 4th of July, 1965. She would be a great subject for a movie, The Woman Who Cheated Herself. Okay, if you can think of another film in which Lee J. Cobb played a leading man, or didn't yell his head off, or if you want to weigh in on whether Jane Wyatt is the least alluring femme fatale ever, let's hear from you on our Facebook page and Twitter feed. We'll have more cops for you next week on Noir Alley, but it'll be much easier to tell the good guys from the bad guys in the sensational 67-minute thriller Armored Car Robbery. So, unless I meet my kind of homicidal socialite, see you back here next week. Same place, same time.